Echo didn't bark often, not without a reason. That morning, with frost still clinging to the pine needles of Grey Hollow, she stopped dead in her tracks. The old German shepherd, now 10 and greying around the muzzle, let out a low, unfamiliar sound, half growl, half whine, and turned her head sharply toward Logan Hart. Logan knew that look. Eyes locked, tense posture, ears forward like radar. She was saying one thing: follow me. Now. He tightened his grip on the leash out of habit, though it was rarely needed. Echo had been trained to follow commands to the letter, but this wasn't a drill. She wasn't waiting. She ran. Logan hesitated for a beat. Years of conditioning from combat made hesitation feel like death. But this wasn't Kandahar, this was Montana. Still, the adrenaline hit all the same. He sprinted after her, boots crunching frozen brush beneath his feet, lungs burning from the cold. They crested a slope slick with moss and wet leaves. Then he saw it. A cabin, or what was left of one. It was burning. Flames chewed through the roof, smoke curling upward into the pale sky like a black flag. The air reeked of old fuel and scorched timber. Logan's breath caught in his throat. "Echo!" he shouted, his voice rough. "Stay back." But she was already moving, not with panic, but precision, skirting the tree line, then cutting towards the cabin's open front door, tail stiff and low, every muscle alert. Logan swore under his breath and dropped his gear. He pulled his jacket collar up over his face and ran toward the blaze. The heat hit him like a wall. Through the flicker of orange and black he glimpsed movement. A figure, slumped, tied to a chair. A uniform, tan and green. Law enforcement. The floor beneath the man was already scorched, smoke billowing around his legs. God! Logan didn't finish. He charged inside, eyes squinting through the smoke. "Echo, here!" he shouted. She darted ahead, circling to the far side of the room with trained efficiency. Her bark came once, sharp and urgent. He reached the man just as the ceiling groaned above them. The ropes were tight. Whoever left him here meant for him to die slowly. Logan sliced the bindings with his belt knife, hands moving fast despite the rising heat. The man moaned. "They left me. To die." "Not today," Logan grunted, yanking the man to his feet. The deputy's knees buckled. Logan slung the man's arm over his shoulder, guiding him toward the exit as Echo flanked them, body low, eyes tracking the fire's spread. The moment they stumbled outside, the front wall collapsed behind them with a roar of splintering wood and flame. Ash rained down like snow. They hit the ground hard. Logan rolled, dragging the man with him. Echo barked once, then took position beside the fallen officer, panting heavily, watching the tree line. Logan ripped off his outer jacket and wrapped it around the officer. "You're out. You're safe." The man coughed, blooded, the corner of his mouth, eyes raw and unfocused. They knew I was coming." It was a setup. "What's your name?" "Marcus," he rasped. "Marcus Hale." Deputy Logan nodded, mind already spinning. "Logan Hart, this is Echo. You're lucky she smelled the smoke Marcus tried to sit up, but failed. I was tracking something. A tip. About people being moved through the backwoods. They were supposed to be gone, but they were waiting." Echo let out a low growl, not at them, but at the woods behind. Her body was tense again, watching. Logan reached for his canteen and held it to Marcus's lips. "Easy. We'll get you to shelter, then you tell me everything." "I shouldn't be alive." "No, you shouldn't." Logan's voice was cold. "Which means someone wanted to send a message." Marcus looked up. His eyes were clearer now. "You're military." "Was. Echo too?" Logan didn't answer. Instead, he whistled once. Echo stood, stepped closer, and gently nuzzled Marcus's side, checking him. Then she turned to Logan, her gaze steady. "We're not done here." Logan sighed. Yeah, I know they moved slow. Logan supporting Marcus, Echo leading, nose to the ground, tail flicking like a metronome of tension. Each time Echo paused, Logan felt his stomach tighten. She was reading something he couldn't see. By the time they reached Logan's cabin, the sky had turned to ash. A whisper of snow began falling. Inside, Logan lowered Marcus onto the couch. Echo sat near the door, still watching the dark like she didn't trust it to stay quiet. Logan poured broth into a tin mug and handed it over. Marcus's voice was hoarse. "Why'd you help me?" "Because Echo didn't turn away." Outside, in the clearing between trees and silence, smoke still twisted in the air, like a warning that hadn't finished burning. The cabin sat nestled between two ridgelines, half swallowed by trees that had grown around it like protective arms. Logan built it with his own hands after returning from deployment, every log, every joint, every nail driven into the quiet. It wasn't big, but it was safe. And more importantly, it was far from people. That night, it became a triage unit. Marcus Hale, barely conscious, was propped on the weathered couch. His face was pale, streaked with ash, and bruised from the impact of fists or worse. Logan had cut off the remains of his uniform shirt and now dabbed at a long gash near his ribs. The blood was dry, but crusted deep. "You're lucky the fire didn't take your lungs," Logan muttered. "Another minute and you'd be ash." Marcus winced. "Feels like they still might be." Logan didn't smile. He pressed a cold compress into Marcus's side, then handed him another mug of broth. Echo lay nearby, her head on her paws, watching every move. Outside, the wind began to pick up, rattling the loose shutters. Snow had started to fall harder, brushing against the windows, in faint whispers. Marcus broke the silence first. "How long you been out here?" "5 years," Logan said. Marcus looked around the cabin. Old wood stove, firewood stacked tight, military cot near the back wall, a single shelf lined with books, many about wilderness survival, the rest unreadable from the soot staining the spines. "5 years alone?" "Not alone." Logan nodded toward Echo. Marcus turned his head. "She military?" "Yeah, same unit. K9 Recon Kandahar. She found 3 kids buried under rubble after an airstrike. I watched her dig till her paws bled. She always this quiet?" Logan nodded. "She speaks when it matters." Marcus leaned his head back, breathing shallow. "I used to think dogs were just pets." Until tonight, Echo didn't react. Just blinked slowly, tail thumping once against the floor. Logan poured another ladle of broth. "Start talking." "What happened to you?" Marcus hesitated. The fire crackled in the stove, casting flickering shadows across the log walls. For a moment he looked like he wanted to lie, but Echo shifted. Just a tiny movement, enough to make him stop. "I was chasing a lead," he said finally, "about a missing girl. 14, Maria Torres. Disappeared 3 weeks ago walking home from school. I'd seen patterns, other girls, other towns, but the department kept closing the cases. No connections, no evidence. You went alone." Marcus nodded. "Couldn't trust anyone." "Got an anonymous tip. Said I'd find something at a cabin near Grey Hollow. So I drove up there. Unmarked car, no radio call." Logan frowned. "That's stupid." "Yeah," Marcus admitted. "And when I got there, it was empty. Or I thought it was. Next thing I remember, someone slammed a rifle stock into the back of my head. I woke up tied to that chair, smelled the gasoline before I even saw the flames." Echo growled, soft but unmistakable. Marcus's eyes flicked toward her. "They didn't just want me dead. They wanted me erased." Logan sat back in his chair. His fingers rubbed absently at the scar on his left forearm, a pale line, long and deep, that ran from elbow to wrist. Afghanistan. IED blast. He dug Echo out of the wreckage with that arm half torn open. "She found you before the fire did," Logan said. Marcus looked at Echo. "Then I owe her my life." Echo looked away, uninterested in the praise, but she shifted closer to Marcus, resting her chin on the floor near his boots. "Why the girl?" Logan asked. "What made her case different?" Marcus hesitated, then reached into his pants pocket, burnt, singed, and pulled out a small object wrapped in plastic. It was a photo, faded, crumpled, a young girl with dark curls and a bright pink hoodie. "My sister," Marcus said. "Sophia, gone 10 years now. Vanished from our street, we never found a trace. I joined the force to find her. Maria looked like her. Same age, same eyes. Logan didn't speak. He just nodded once. It was enough." The room settled into silence again. Echo stood slowly and padded across the floor to Logan. She nudged his knee with her snout. Once, then again. Her body was tense, alert. "What is it, girl?" Logan whispered. She turned her head towards the door, ears up, tail still. She didn't bark, but she didn't relax either. "Someone's out there?" Marcus asked, trying to sit up. "No," Logan said. "She'd be louder if they were close." "She smells something. Smoke, maybe." Echo moved to the window, paws up on the sill, nose pressed to the glass. She whined once. Logan stood, pulled his coat back on. "Stay here. I need to check something. Logan, I'll be right back." He opened the door. Cold air rushed in, biting against his skin. Snow swirled in tiny cyclones beneath the porch light. Echo stayed at his side as they stepped into the dark. 50 feet from the cabin, Echo stopped. She sniffed once, then started pawing at a patch of ground near a fallen tree. Logan crouched beside her and brushed away the snow. Tire tracks. Faint, but fresh. Heading away from the direction of the fire. Someone had been watching. Maybe even followed them back. Logan's jaw clenched. This wasn't over. Echo growled low again. Not fear, warning. Behind them, in the cabin, Marcus sat with the photo in his hand, unaware that the fire he'd escaped had only been the match. The real blaze was coming. By sunrise, the snow had slowed to a whisper. The forest stood still again, cloaked in a white veil. Logan didn't speak much as they moved, only nodded when Marcus asked if he was sure about going back to the site. "I trust her nose more than I trust most men," Logan said, glancing down at Echo trotting ahead through the snow. "If she says something's not finished there, it isn't." Marcus limped beside him, wrapped in Logan's spare jacket. His bruises were visible now in the soft daylight, purple blooms along his jaw and ribs. But his steps were more sure, eyes clearer. The fear had settled into something else. Resolve. They reached the smouldering wreckage just as the sky shifted from grey to pale blue. What was once a cabin now looked like the charred skeleton of a forgotten thing. Only blackened beams remained upright, creaking softly with each gust of wind. Echo stopped near the perimeter. She sniffed the air, then stepped carefully over a collapsed section of wall. Logan followed, boots crunching over frozen ash. "Echo, what do you smell?" he asked, low and steady. The shepherd circled a portion of floor where the fire hadn't fully burned through. Her nose pressed to the ground, tail still. She whined once, then began to dig. Slowly at first, then with growing urgency. Logan crouched beside her. "Easy, girl!" Show Me ash flew into the air with each scrape of her paws until something metallic caught the light. Echo stopped, looked at Logan. He brushed the debris away with his gloves revealing a broken chain, twisted, scorched. At the end of it, a locket, cracked down the middle, melted slightly at the hinge. Marcus leaned over, squinting. "Wait, that's Maria's. The missing girl. I've seen it. Her mum gave it to her before she passed." Logan turned the locket in his hand. Inside, half a photo remained. A young girl's eye, a strand of dark hair. The rest had been burned away. Echo wasn't done. She moved a few feet to the left, tail stiff, then barked, sharp and singular. Logan stepped over and saw where she was pawing at something buried deeper beneath the soot. Together they cleared the spot, revealing a plastic sleeve, edges melted but contents intact. Inside, a folded map, blood stained one corner. Logan unfolded it slowly. It was hand-drawn but precise. Rural routes, old service roads, markers in red. A thick red X was circled just outside Grey Hollow. "A warehouse," Marcus said, pointing. "Right here, near the rail spur. It's supposed to be abandoned." Logan didn't look away from the map. This wasn't just a trap. It was a stopover, a waypoint. You think Maria was brought here. Logan folded the map and slid it into a sealable pouch. "Not just her." Others. Marcus nodded slowly, his voice hardening. "I checked missing persons reports for 2 counties. The girls were all between 12 and 16, all from rural towns. No forced entry, no ransom notes, just gone." Echo sat beside them now, head up, watching the woods. She didn't relax. "Not here. They're moving them like cargo," Logan said. "They torched the place to erase the evidence," Marcus added. Echo stood, ears pricked, and walked to a spot where a large patch of earth had caved in from the fire. She sniffed, then looked back. Logan approached, crouched low. Deep tire tracks. Wide. Dual axles. "These aren't pickup truck tracks," he muttered. This was a 5-ton hauler, like the kind used for meat transport. Marcus's expression turned. "Refrigerated trucks. They're masking the heat signatures." They both stood in silence, snow starting to fall again in light flurries. The wood seemed to pull tighter around them. "Whoever's behind this," Marcus said, "they've done it before." Probably for years. Logan pulled his journal from his coat pocket, flipped it open to a blank page. With a pencil stub, he wrote, "Echo recovered locket, confirms ID, found blood-stained map, coordinates, Grey Hollow warehouse, heavy vehicle tracks, possible transport hub, pattern suggests organized movement, not random." He paused, then underlined one line, "Echo found the truth in the ash." Marcus turned toward the road. "What now?" Logan tucked the notebook away. "We don't go to the cops." "Not yet. You think they're compromised?" "I know they are." Echo barked again. This time it wasn't warning, it was momentum. Forward. Urgency. Logan nodded to her. "She wants to move." "So do I," Marcus said. They left the burnt shell behind, walking toward the truck parked off the trail. Echo stopped once to look back, her ears low for a second. Then she trotted ahead. Whatever had started in that fire wasn't done. And Echo? She wasn't following the past anymore. She was tracking the future. The cabin was quieter that night. Too quiet. Snow fell in long, drifting strands outside the windows, but inside something else hung in the air, thicker than silence. Logan sat near the fireplace, his elbows resting on his knees, eyes locked on the flickering flames. His jaw flexed but didn't move. Not for words. Not for answers. Across from him, Marcus sat hunched over the map they'd recovered, a mug of untouched broth cooling in his hands. His gaze was hollow, somewhere far from the warmth of the fire. He finally spoke, voice thin. It had to come from inside. Logan didn't look up. "No one else knew where I was going. I didn't write it down, didn't radio it in. I told one person. One." Captain Dwyer Logan said nothing. Echo, lying just behind him, lifted her head. "She vouched for him," Marcus muttered. "Told me he was one of the good ones." She said. He stopped, shook his head hard, like the words themselves burned. "I looked up to him." He pinned my badge. Logan took a slow breath. You sure he tipped them off? Marcus clenched the mug tighter. He didn't just tip them off. I think he's part of it. There's been a pattern of missing reports, filed complaints disappearing. We're not dealing with just some smugglers in the woods. This is coordinated. And the warehouse, Grey Hollow, Dwyer signed the demolition order on it 6 months ago. Said it was condemned. But no one ever tore it down. He paused, the truth hitting harder with every sentence. It's still standing because they're using it. A log cracked sharply in the fire. The sound made Echo lift her ears higher. Marcus looked at Logan now. You were military. You know what this feels like. When the chain of command is the problem. Logan didn't respond. Echo stood, walked slowly toward the door, and sat with her back to the room, facing the cold. Watching. She hasn't slept since we found the locket. Marcus said softly. She knows something's coming. Logan murmured. They sat in the glow of firelight and falling snow for a long while. Then Logan rose, walked to the window, and stared out into the dark. Nothing moved, but his pulse did. I didn't come out here to get involved, he said, more to the forest than to Marcus. No one ever does. Logan turned back, face unreadable. I buried enough of my friends because I trusted the wrong people. That ends here. You don't owe me anything, Logan. Marcus said. No, Logan said, but I owe her. He nodded toward Echo, still on alert, still guarding. That night, Logan didn't sleep. Not really. He sat, on the porch, with his rifle laid across his lap, Echo lying beside him, her head resting near his boot. Every gust of wind made her ears twitch. Every creak of the trees earned her attention. Around 2 a.m., Logan spoke without looking at her. You always know what's real, don't you, girl? Echo didn't move, just blinked once, slowly. Logan reached down and scratched behind her ear. I fought ghosts in the desert. Saw things no man should carry. Thought this place would let them fade, but I was wrong. He looked up towards the tree line. Snow layered the branches like silence. Someone's moving kids like product, and we're the only ones that know it. He glanced down. So what do you say? We go all in. Echo didn't answer. She didn't have to. She stood, stretched slowly, then walked to the edge of the porch. She sat and stared into the woods, nose tilted slightly to the wind. Logan leaned back and closed his eyes for a beat. Inside the cabin, Marcus slept in fits, haunted by what he'd discovered. Names and faces twisted together in his dreams. Maria, Sophia, Captain Dwyer's calm voice saying, "Some doors stay shut for a reason." But in those dreams, Echo was always there, watching, waiting. At dawn, Logan packed a go bag, rations, medical, ammunition. He pulled out a dusty field radio from a crate marked RECONHARTL and began to tune it manually. "What's that?" Marcus asked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "An old comm line. Still taps into Border Patrol relay if you hit the right frequency. You think they'll help?" Logan looked at him. "I think they'll listen. Or they'll hang up. Either way, I'll know where we stand." Marcus stood slowly, grimacing. "We going after Grey Hollow?" Logan zipped the bag. "Not yet. First, we make sure no one else disappears before we do." As they stepped outside, Echo was already waiting by the truck. Her breath fogged in the cold, but her eyes burned sharp and focused. Logan paused beside her, hand resting gently on her head. "You always know the truth, huh, girl?" Echo licked his glove once, then turned to face the road. They were no longer running from anything. They were heading straight into it. The road to the warehouse was a forgotten stretch of cracked asphalt and frost-bitten gravel, winding through the pines like something nature had tried to erase. The map had been clear, a red X drawn with a purpose, and Logan trusted hand-drawn marks more than official records. Echo rode in the back of the truck, standing with her front paws braced against the cab, ears twitching at every new scent. She hadn't rested since they left the cabin. Not truly. Something in her bones knew this place before they even saw it. The warehouse appeared just after a sharp bend, half buried in trees, its roof sagging under the weight of years and moss. From the outside, it looked dead, forgotten. The kind of building people stopped asking questions about, but Echo growled low in her throat. "It's not empty," Logan said. Marcus nodded. No power lines. No traffic cameras. Perfect cover. They circled around the back, cutting engines, moving on foot. Echo led the way, nose to the ground. Logan carried his old service pistol, tucked low beneath his jacket. Marcus had a borrowed shotgun, unfamiliar but steady in his grip. At the rear of the building, Echo stopped. She sniffed near the loading dock, then pawed once at the ground. A thin smear of oil stretched away toward the side panel door. "Recent," Logan said, crouching. Still wet. Marcus wiped a gloved finger through the slick and sniffed. "Diesel and stabilizer. Cold storage engine. They've been here." They entered through a loose plank near the lower wall, Echo slipping in first. The inside of the warehouse was hollow and quiet. Too quiet. Dust floated through thin beams of light that slashed through broken windows. It looked like a storage facility that hadn't seen use in years. But that was a lie. In one corner, fresh footprints marked the dirt. Plastic restraints sat in a pile beside a scuffed bucket. A thermal blanket hung from a nail. There were wrappers on the ground. Syringe caps. Echo moved ahead, steps slow, tail low. She stopped at a stack of old pallets. Barked once, then again, sharper. Logan reached her side and noticed something strange. A tarp, sun-bleached but weighted down at the edges. Beneath it, a trap-door, steel, bolted, disguised in grime. Together they cleared the tarp. Logan grabbed the recessed handle and pulled. The door creaked open into a black void. The smell changed instantly. Damp. Earth. And something human? Marcus clicked on a flashlight. "I'll go first." "No," Logan said. "She will." Echo descended the stairs like a ghost, silent, controlled. Logan followed, weapon ready, heart pounding. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The room at the bottom wasn't large. Cinderblock walls, a single bulb swinging from a cord, and in the corners, shadows that moved. 4 figures huddled together. A woman in her 50s, grey streaks in her dark hair, crouched protectively in front of a boy and girl, no older than 10. A younger woman sat behind them, bruised, holding her arm at an odd angle. Echo stopped in front of the children and sat. The older girl, eyes wide, whispered, "He's not one of them." Marcus stepped forward slowly. "You're safe now." The younger woman tried to rise. "They'll come back." Tonight, with the cold truck Logan's breath caught. The older woman stood straighter now. Her voice was hoarse, but her words were firm. "They keep us quiet with injections." But I listened. One of them mentioned a drop tonight. Said we're just one batch. "Did they say where?" Marcus asked. "No," she replied. "Just that someone with a badge clears the paperwork." Echo circled once, then barked toward the wall. Logan followed, flashlight cutting across an old metal cabinet. On it, a name etched faintly in dust. Wyatt, his chest tightened. He opened the cabinet and found a clipboard. Manifest sheets, fake IDs, and tucked in the back, a photo. 3 men in military fatigues, desert behind them. Laughing. Logan stared. One of them was him. The other, Wyatt Lee. He ran a thumb across the photo. "I pulled him from a blown Humvee in 2010. Thought he was dead. Guess he's been busy, Marcus said quietly. They moved the survivors up the stairs one by one, Echo walking beside each of them. Her body blocked wind, her eyes reassured. The boy, barely 6, never let go of her tail fur. Outside, Logan radioed a single signal burst from the truck's comm rig, a frequency once used in field extraction. No words, just a ping, in case someone was listening. Then they set to work. "We don't have time to run them all back to town," Logan said. "We dig in." "A trap?" Marcus asked. Logan nodded. "We hit them when they show. This ends here. They gave the children food, water, pulled emergency blankets from the truck." The 2 women helped where they could, steadying the group. Echo stood near the tree line, staring into the dark. Wind stirred her coat, but she didn't flinch. Later, Logan found her pawing at the oil trail again. At the edge of the woods, a cigarette butt lay fresh, crushed into the dirt. Menthol, Wyatt's brand. He stared out into the pines, jaw clenched. "You know who he is, don't you?" Marcus said from behind. "Yeah," Logan answered. "I used to." Echo returned to Logan's side, eyes never leaving the woods. She hadn't barked in an hour, but her silence screamed everything they needed to hear. Tonight, the storm wouldn't be weather. It would be war. The forest was holding its breath. Thick flakes of snow drifted down in slow spirals, blanketing the trees in silence. Each branch sagged under the weight, muffling the world into a hush that felt less like winter and more like warning, the kind of cold that came before something broke. From their hidden position just beyond the tree line, Logan, Marcus, and Echo waited. The warehouse behind them was dark, seemingly deserted. But down the access road, headlights carved twin beams through the falling snow. A low diesel rumble followed, guttural and deliberate. "There," Marcus whispered, nodding toward the bend. Logan raised his binoculars. Refrigerated box truck, same kind they used before Echo tensed, standing at full alert, tail rigid, ears twitching to every sound. Her breath fogged the air, but her body stayed still, as if carved from ice. The truck rolled up to the loading dock and idled. Moments later, 2 men stepped out, both in heavy jackets, their hoods pulled low. One carried a flashlight, sweeping it slowly over the trail. "They're checking for footprints," Marcus said. "They'll find them," Logan replied, "if we let them." They moved, low and quiet, using the snowdrifts for cover. Echo took point, her body gliding along the edges of the trees. No barking, just movement. Purpose. The lead man reached for the warehouse door and began to unlock it. The second man stood watch, scanning the woods. His breath came in short clouds. His free hand tapped against his thigh, a rhythm born of nerves. Or habit. Logan's eyes narrowed. That tapping, he remembered it. Field habit. A way to keep count under pressure. Wyatt Logan's stomach turned. Same man from the photograph. The one who should have died in Kandahar. Now here, in the snow, opening a door meant for trafficking souls. "Wait for it," Logan said, but Echo didn't wait. She darted, straight at the second man, Wyatt, her growl sharp and sudden, cutting the stillness like a blade. She lunged, catching him off guard, teeth locking around his forearm before he could raise his weapon. "Echo!" Logan shouted, but she was already in motion, slamming the man to the ground with trained precision. The other man turned, pulling his sidearm, but Marcus stepped out of the trees and fired. The shot echoed like thunder, and the man dropped with a cry, shoulder torn open. Wyatt struggled under Echo, kicking wildly. His gloved hand reached for something in his coat. Too late. Logan was there, pinning his other arm down with a knee, prying Echo off with a command. "Release!" Echo snarled once, then obeyed, stepping back but holding position, her growl simmering just beneath the surface. Logan yanked open Wyatt's coat, finding what he was reaching for. A key card. Matte black. A barcode along the bottom. No insignia. No name. Marcus crouched beside him, breath heavy. What is it? Access. Logan muttered. To something bigger. They zip-tied both men and dragged them behind the pallets. Wyatt bled from Echo's bite, teeth marks deep through the sleeve. His eyes met Logan's, not in fear, but recognition. You should have stayed buried, Wyatt said. So should you, Logan replied coldly. But here we are. The other man moaned. Younger, less trained, rookie muscle. Where's the next drop point? Marcus asked him. The man didn't answer. Logan grabbed a handful of snow and rubbed it against the man's face. You don't start talking. We let Echo keep asking. He glanced at the shepherd. She stepped forward. That was enough. South side of Grey Hollow. The man gasped. They're staging at the old rail yard. Moving everything out before sunrise, Marcus's face hardened. How many kids? I don't know. At least 30. Maybe more. Sheriff Carter's the one who arranges the safe zones. Marcus reeled back, as if slapped. Logan looked at him. That's your boss? Marcus's voice cracked. He was my mentor. Echo growled again, ears locking towards the tree line. Footsteps, fast, coming from the west. Logan spun, weapon up. A shadow moved between trees, then it stopped. A figure in a uniform stood at the edge of the woods, broad-shouldered, tall, the glint of a badge barely visible beneath the parka. Sheriff Dwayne Carter. He didn't move towards them, just watched. Even from a distance, Logan could see his hand resting on his belt, near the radio, but not touching it, not calling for help. Carter turned, slowly, and vanished back into the woods. Marcus exhaled like he'd been holding it in for years. Logan said nothing, just stared at the empty space Carter had left behind. They knew we'd be here, Marcus said. Echo walked back to them, nose to the ground, tail still high. She looked up at Logan, waiting. We've got the key, Logan said, holding up the access card. And we've got a name. Marcus looked at Echo. She didn't just find a lead. She found the truth. Logan gave a nod. She always does. Above them, the snow started again. Colder, heavier, like a curtain falling before the final act. The storm came in hard. By nightfall, Cedar Pass was swallowed in white. The road disappeared beneath thick drifts, and visibility dropped to the length of a rifle barrel. Wind howled through the trees like a warning carried too late. It was the perfect cover. Logan crouched near a downed tree at the edge of the old utility road, watching the sharp curve where they'd set the bait. He'd worked fast, planted decoy flares wired to mimic a Department of Homeland Security signal, leading straight into an unplowed trench just off the main route. A ditch deep enough to bury the front axles of any truck that followed the blinking lights. Beside him, Marcus double-checked the positioning of a small thermal beacon. It blinked steadily from beneath a layer of snow, barely visible to the eye but obvious through night vision. Echo stood behind them, coat dusted in white, her body rigid. She hadn't sat down in over an hour. She knows it's close, Logan said quietly. Marcus wiped melting snow from his brow. You sure the route holds? Logan nodded. Wyatt said sunrise. They're moving early to beat the storm. These guys aren't subtle. They're on a schedule. The radio crackled once, static. Then silence. Marcus checked the battery. Nothing. They're jamming it, Logan said. Means we're right. Echo shifted. Her head turned east. Then, faint engine noise, low and steady. Logan raised his binoculars. Headlights cut through the snow. 1, 2, then a third. 6-wheeled transport trucks, refrigerated units, just like the ones they'd seen at the warehouse. Get ready, he whispered. The first truck slowed as it reached the blinking flares, then turned. Tires groaned against packed snow. It eased down the false trail. Then came the second, and the third. The trap was set. Echo didn't move until the lead truck's tires dipped into the trench and stuck. Metal screamed as the axles bottomed out. The truck rocked sideways, nose buried. Its engine revered, then stalled. From inside, someone shouted. Logan signaled. Marcus grabbed the bolt cutters and ran low along the tree line, flanking the second vehicle. The moment was tight. Then it snapped. The back doors of the middle truck opened, and a man in heavy gear stepped out, scanning the trees. Another followed, armed. But Echo moved first. She bolted toward the rear of the third truck, leaping over a snowbank, nose to the ground. She barked once, loud and sharp. Logan looked up from cover. She was digging. Fast. Frantic. He ran. By the time he reached her, her front paws were scraping at a wooden crate half buried beneath the snowdrift. It had no markings, just rough wood and rusted latches. Cold to the touch. He forced the lid open. Inside, a boy, curled tightly, no more than 7, his lips blue, skin pale, arms clutched around his chest. Jesus! Logan reached in, pulled him out gently, wrapped him in his coat. The boy's body was limp, but he breathed, shallow and weak. Echo licked his face once, whining low. You found him, Logan whispered. You damn beautiful girl! You found him, gunfire cracked behind them. Marcus had cut open the back of the second truck and was waving civilians out, women, children, teens, shivering, crying. Some could barely stand. Others ran barefoot into the snow. Move! Marcus shouted. Get to the trees. Logan ran toward them with the boy in his arms, Echo beside him, barking directions, her body guiding, pushing, shepherding. More doors burst open. The smugglers panicked. One driver abandoned his truck and ran into the woods. Another tried to reverse, but spun out in the ditch, tires howling against ice. A flare burst behind them, lighting the snowfield in violent red. Chaos. But in that chaos, more than 50 people made it to safety. They collapsed behind the snowbanks, wrapped in thermal blankets, their eyes wide but breathing. Logan passed the boy to a woman, early 30s, wrapped in layers of stolen warmth. Keep him close. He's freezing. She nodded, tears streaking down her face. In the distance, Echo growled. A man was sneaking behind the last truck, pistol drawn. He raised it toward Marcus. Before Logan could shout, Echo launched. Her body cut through snow like a missile. She hit the man mid-step, jaws clamping onto his wrist, sending the gun flying. They rolled together into the ditch, and Echo didn't let go until Marcus arrived and pinned him down. Secure! Marcus yelled. Logan looked around. Smoke from the flares drifted high. The woods echoed with heavy breath, sobs, and the muffled noise of stunned relief. But no more gunfire, no more resistance. The convoy had been broken. Logan knelt beside Echo, who was panting hard now, blood on her muzzle, not hers. He touched her neck gently. You did good, girl. She licked his glove once, then turned her head towards the darkness beyond the trail. She wasn't finished. Not yet. Dawn hadn't broken. Yet. But the compound at the edge of Grey Hollow glowed under the cutting beams of federal headlights. Black SUVs bearing the silver DHS Eagle idled silently near the tree line, steam rising from their hoods as agents in tactical gear fanned out into the snow-drenched stillness. Logan stood just outside the perimeter, watching the operation unfold with a quiet detachment. He wore his old jacket again, the one with the frayed shoulder seam and faded unit patch that no longer meant anything to anyone but him. Beside him, Echo stood poised, as if carved from the cold itself, ears alert, nose twitching faintly at the air. She'd led them here. Not a GPS, not a drone. Echo. After the chaos of the convoy rescue, Logan had retrieved the stolen access card from Wyatt's coat. Embedded inside the plastic was a tiny RFID chip, shielded and nearly untraceable. DHS agents hadn't been able to crack it, not until Echo signaled a scent trail from a back road off Route 7. She'd followed it for nearly 6 miles through shifting snow, never breaking stride. Now they were here. The main building looked like a decaying lodge, dark wood paneling, shuttered windows, snow piled against the roof. But the air around it pulsed with tension. Logan had seen this kind of staging before, false rustic charm to hide cold precision. Agent Monica Reyes approached, clipboard in hand, snow dusting her braid. Her voice was calm, but tight with purpose. Thermal shows multiple heat signatures inside. One sub-level, possibly a bunker or storage area. Minimal radio traffic, but encrypted. This place is layered, Logan glanced at Echo. She says there's something deeper. Reyes didn't laugh. She just nodded. Then we go deeper. The breach was surgical. Silent entry. No flashbangs, no screaming commands. Just the careful movement of boots and breath and steel. Echo moved first, slipping through the cracked front door before it fully opened. Logan followed close, hand on her flank. Inside, the air was colder than expected. Clean. Too clean. The walls were bare, but the furniture was too new. Wrong. A floorboard creaked beneath Echo's paw. She stopped, turned her head, then scratched. Logan crouched beside her. You feel that? He knocked once on the floorboard. Hollow. Here, he called. Agents converged. One peeled back the rug, revealing a steel hatch, flush with the wooden floor. No latch, no handle. Then Echo growled. Not loud, not aggressive. Focused. Logan placed the stolen RFID card against the corner of the hatch. A quiet beep, then a click. The door lifted slowly, revealing a narrow stairwell leading into the dark. Cold air spilled upward, flashlights on. Echo led the descent. What waited below wasn't chaos. It was order. Too much order. Rows of metal shelving, locked file cabinets, filing drawers labeled in Sharpie. On the far wall, a dry erase board with codes and initials. It looked like the back end of a logistics company. Only this wasn't shipping parts. It was people. Hundreds of forged passports, US, Canadian, Mexican. Dozens of fake driver's licenses. Documents organized by age group. Handwritten ledgers listing transfer dates and recipient initials. One shelf bore a black binder marked with a single word. Origins. Reyes flipped it open. Inside names, photos, dates of disappearance. All cross-referenced with police reports and medical records. These are the real files, she whispered. They've been tracking them like product inventory. Echo walked slowly to the end of the room and sat beside a locked metal cabinet. She didn't bark. She just stared. Logan approached and forced it open with a pry bar. Inside, hard drives. At least 6. No wonder they were cleaning house. Marcus said behind them, This isn't a warehouse. Its commander loud commotion upstairs. Footsteps. Then shouting. Agents radioed in. We've got movement. Rear exit. Logan bolted up the stairs with Echo right behind him. Outside, floodlights caught a figure sprinting across the snowfield, heavyset, wearing a sheriff's jacket. Marcus froze. Carter, he growled. Echo didn't hesitate. She lunged. Snow exploded beneath her paws as she raced through the white, cutting off Carter's angle before he reached the tree line. The sheriff turned, hand diving for his waistband. Too slow. Echo hit him low, teeth clamping onto his arm. He screamed and fell hard, twisting in the snow. By the time Logan and Marcus reached him, Carter was face down, arm pinned, Echo standing guard, chest heaving but steady. Marcus stood over him, shotgun lowered but still ready. You betrayed every badge in this county. Carter spat blood into the snow. You have no idea how deep this goes. I don't care, Marcus said, because it ends here. Reyes arrived seconds later, cuffs ready. As agents swarmed the compound, Logan stepped away from the noise, from the chaos, from the tightening circle of justice finally coming due. Echo stood alone by the hatch, watching it like a sentinel. She didn't look up when Logan approached. She simply shifted her weight forward, ears still high, eyes fixed. He knelt beside her. It's over, he whispered. But Echo didn't move. Because for her, it wasn't. She'd seen the maps, the crates, the faces. She knew this was only one piece of something bigger, and she wouldn't walk away until the last door was closed. Spring came slowly to Cedar Pass. The snow melted one reluctant inch at a time, revealing patches of wild grass and the first stubborn crocus blooms poking through the thawing earth. Where the compound once stood, where fear and silence had ruled, something new was rising. Something warmer. Echo House. The old lodge had been gutted to the studs. The hidden basement was sealed off, its floor stripped bare and rebuilt with glass and cedar. The walls that once held documents forged in the shadows now displayed, hand-drawn posters from children who had survived it all, smiling suns, painted trees, and stick-figured dogs with ears that stood proud. It didn't look like a shelter. It looked like home. Logan never used the title they gave him, program director. He just showed up early, chopped wood for the stove, repaired leaky windows, and fed the chickens in the back coop. He wore the same canvas jacket with the patched elbow and carried a quietness that calmed more than it pushed. The kids called him Mr. Logan. Some just called him the quiet guy. He was fine with both. Marcus Hale had taken up the badge again, this time as sheriff of Grey Hollow. It wasn't an easy job, rebuilding trust where it had been shattered. But people showed up to town halls now. Officers filed reports without fear of them being erased. The department was smaller but cleaner. Honest. And every Saturday, Marcus came by Echo House. No cruiser, no badge on display, just a battered flannel and a sack of donuts for the kids. He led safety workshops, answered questions, and once a month helped run what they called Courage Camp, where kids learned not just how to speak up, but how to be heard. The first time they held it, Logan almost didn't attend. But Echo had walked up beside him at the porch steps and nudged his hip with her nose until he moved. Echo. She was grayer now, slower on cold mornings. The limp in her back leg had settled into something permanent, but her eyes, those sharp, unwavering eyes, never dulled. She still did perimeter walks twice a day, checking the fence line, still sat by the porch every afternoon, watching the gravel road as if expecting something, or someone, to return. The children adored her. She let them braid her tail, tie ribbons on her collar. She tolerated it all with patient dignity. But when a new arrival stepped off the shuttle and didn't speak, Echo was always the first to sit beside them. Quiet. Steady. No judgment. And somehow, without ever saying a word, she always got through. One afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the western ridge and cast long golden shadows across the yard, Logan stood at the edge of the porch, sipping coffee from a tin mug. Echo lay a few feet away, stretched out in the last patch of warmth. A little girl approached, 7 or 8, with dark curls and a guarded expression. Her name was Lani. She'd arrived only 2 weeks earlier and had barely spoken since. She knelt beside Echo and held out something small. A pendant, old and tarnished, hanging from a frayed ribbon. "My mum gave me this," Lani said softly. "I dropped it when everything was loud." Logan watched without moving. "I found it in the garden," she continued. I want her to have it." She reached forward and tied the ribbon gently around Echo's collar. "She makes the noise stop," Lani whispered. Echo didn't move. She just rested her head in the girl's lap and closed her eyes. Later that evening, Logan wrote a note in his weathered journal. Just one line. She still finds what needs saving. Inside the main hall, music played from an old speaker. Laughter rose as kids gathered around a birthday cake made from pancakes. Marcus was there, dancing badly with 2 toddlers and losing a battle with frosting. Sarah Garland, the house's program manager, stood near the bookshelf, quietly organizing donated supplies. She'd been a social worker for most of her life, and after Echo House was founded, she'd driven straight from Texas and never looked back. The past still haunted her in quiet ways, but here she moved with purpose. She caught Logan's eye across the room and gave him a small nod. He nodded back. Outside, the carved sign above the door read, "Echo House" beneath it, etched in a plate of brushed brass. "In loyalty, there is redemption. In silence, there is strength." The words weren't chosen lightly. And on most evenings, if you looked toward the edge of the porch just before dusk, you'd still see Echo sitting there, ears alert, head high, watching, waiting, and ready. The first snowfall came early that year, dusting the ridge in a soft white hush, as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath. The kind of quiet that settles deep. Inside Echo House, a fire crackled in the hearth, while children huddled around a worn copy of a new book, one they'd been told was about them, but wasn't. Not really, it was about her. The cover was simple, a charcoal sketch of a German shepherd, eyes alert, ears forward, standing in front of a door left slightly ajar. The title, hand-lettered across the top, read, "Ashes to Angels." The author's name, Logan Grant, was barely noticeable beneath it. That was intentional. He hadn't written it to be seen. He'd written it so she'd never be forgotten. The book traced the journey from the blaze in the mountains to the coldest night in Cedar Pass. From an abandoned K-9 to a reluctant man with scars of his own. It followed children without names and women without homes. It exposed the silence that had blanketed a town, and the one creature who refused to let it stay that way. Echo didn't have dialogue in the story. She didn't need it. Her chapters were written through action, through teeth bared in darkness, through steps taken where no one else dared walk, through moments when a child sat on the edge of despair and a warm muzzle nudged their hand back to the world. Logan finished the book at the old desk in the barn loft, the same one where he once stitched a wounded dog back to life. He mailed the manuscript to just one publisher, with a handwritten note that read, "She never asked for recognition, but she earned it." To his surprise, they called the next day. By the end of the month, the story had gone viral, not because it was trendy, because it was true. Because somewhere, everyone had known an Echo. In the weeks that followed, letters poured into Echo House, from veterans, from trauma survivors, from shelters in Kansas and safe houses in Maine, from a little boy in Oregon who had once been too afraid to speak, but now whispered stories to the old dog who lay under his bed, and from one girl, the one Echo had pulled from the wooden crate that night in the snow, frostbitten and barely breathing. Her name was Mayra. She was 10 now, with thick, dark curls and a laugh that bounced through the hallways like sunlight off glass. She didn't talk about the past much, didn't have to. Echo was always close, always calm, and somehow always listening. One afternoon, after school, Mayra crept out onto the porch with something wrapped in a square of faded fabric. The dog was lying in her usual spot, her breath slow, muzzle silver, eyes half closed in the golden light. Myra sat beside her and unfolded the cloth. Inside was a necklace. Nothing special at first glance, a braided leather cord, worn smooth with time, holding a tin charm shaped like a feather. "I found it when I first came here," Mayra whispered, voice barely audible. "I kept it all this time." She slipped it around Echo's neck, tying it gently beneath the faded tag that still read, Unit 14, FEMA K9. "You're not just a hero," she said. "You're our angel." Echo's tail thumped once against the wood, not loudly, but enough. Behind them, Logan watched from the doorway, his throat tight, hands buried in his jacket pockets. He didn't say a word. He just nodded once, deep and slow, as if to mark the moment. Later that night he sat at his desk and wrote the book's final line. She walked through fire so others could sleep in peace. Echo passed quietly 2 weeks later. She didn't cry out, didn't whimper. She simply lay on the porch during a warm autumn sunset, with the wind rustling through the pine, and exhaled as if the job was finally done. They buried her beneath the old oak at the top of the ridge, overlooking the house. The kids carved small stones and tucked flowers between them. Marcus read a passage from Logan's book. Mayra held Logan's hand. No one wore black. No one whispered. They just stood in silence, because silence was hers. A small plaque was placed beside the grave. It read, Echo, Soldier, Guardian. Angel, the story could have ended there, but Echo's didn't. Across the country, programs began naming new dogs after her, Echo 2, Echo R, Echo North. In shelters and rescue units, handlers told her story to recruits who thought they were just training for a job until they learned what one dog had already done. And every year, on the anniversary of that final raid, Logan reads From Ashes to Angels at Echo House. New faces gather, some too young to remember the snow, but old enough to understand that not all heroes walk on 2 legs. So now we leave you with this. What's your story with a loyal pet? Maybe it's the dog who waited by the door every day, or the one who knew when you were hurting before you did. Maybe it's the one who never needed a leash to stay close. Tell us, because sometimes the greatest stories aren't written in books, they're written in paw prints. If Echo's story moved you, subscribe to our channel, German Shepherd, Stories That Stay. We honor the loyalty, courage, and heart of dogs like Echo. Every view helps us share one more story, one more hero.